The word of wisdom, it's twofold in my own life, and I'll come back to the original meaning. I want to do what happened in my own life first. One of the things that God gave to me, my old bishop when I was young, I was in my 20s then, he rang me one day. He says, "Hey Keith, how are you doing?" I said, "I'm fine, Bishop." And I called his name. He says, I want to tell you something. The Lord spoke to me about you the other day." I said, "Yes, Bishop." And I was quite quiet. And my wife, Winnie, was in the room. And he said, "The Lord told me to tell you, you are Joseph." I said, "Pardon?" He says, "You are Joseph, and God has given you many gifts, and you are going to see like Joseph, and you're going to carry prosperity." And I was in my 20s, he said that. I laughed, I couldn't believe it. I laughed in disbelief. But you know what started to happen, and happens till this very day? If someone comes into my office and I don't know anything about them, and they say to me, "Apostle, I had a really bad dream last night and it doesn't make sense." And they tell me what the dream is, and literally what starts to happen as they are telling me the dream, I often see the dream that they're telling me. And I actually see the dream as they're telling me, and sometimes I'm ahead in the dream. That in the vision that I'm seeing, it's ahead of what they're actually saying. And then as they're telling me, the voice of the Lord speaks to me and says, "This is what this dream actually means." And that's what I do. I just speak. Again, it's the word of knowledge, because God is showing me things that no one has discussed with me. It's the first time I'm hearing it. And also I have the interpretation of the dream and what the dream fully means. Just like Joseph, he was able to tell people, this is what the dream means. And so God has given me that ability. But on top of that, as soon as I tell them what it means, I'm given a direction to give. I get a direction to tell the person what they should now do. Now that is called the word of wisdom. The word of wisdom is not saying, I've got wisdom, because everyone has wisdom. We have a certain level of wisdom. The fear of the Lord, that means the respect towards God, and reading His word is the beginning of wisdom. But wisdom has to do with direction. Now, if you remember some weeks ago, if you've seen the program on Let the Prophets Speak, I think it was the second episode, I spoke about how Paul the Apostle, he stayed with the evangelist, Philip the evangelist. He went to his house, he stayed there for a few days, and the daughters were prophesying. They were prophesying, and Paul didn't go. He waited there many days because something spiritual was in the air. He was already busy traveling around, but he knew that something great was in the air. So he waited on the Lord. Suddenly, a prophet Agabus walked through the door, and he came from Judea, and by traveling by whatever way he traveled, by donkey or walking, it was 18 miles away. So he traveled 18 miles to go to the house where Paul the Apostle was, and he took his girdle, the belt of Paul, and tied his hands. He says, "So shall this man be." And so that was the word. First of all, it was a word of knowledge. He said, "This is what's going to happen to you, Paul. This is what's going to happen." He says, "But also they're going to bind you, and they're going to really was telling him, they're going to, literally imprison you, and every possibility of you being executed." So what you have there, First of all was the prophet Agabus comes and he speaks, and he got there, watch, by word of knowledge. He didn't know where Paul was, but the Spirit of God told him, go to Caesarea, 80 miles away, told him the house where to go, told him it was the evangelist Philip, where Agabus probably never met Philip in his life. And so he knew where to go. The Spirit told him where to go. And that's called the word of knowledge. But when he got there and started to prophesy, the prophecy turned itself, not just from knowledge, here is Paul, prophesy on him, it turned into a direction. So word of wisdom is always the next direction you get after the word. The word of wisdom is always the next direction you get after you release the word of knowledge. See? Because the word of knowledge on its own, it can be dangerous. Because if you meet someone and you say, I've got a word of knowledge that your house is going to collapse in 10 weeks, and that person will panic, they'll run out screaming out of your office, I don't believe this, what's going on, and so forth. But what God will do, he'll release the word of wisdom. And a lot of people don't understand that's what the word of wisdom, but that's the correct definition of the word of wisdom. I studied it in all different angles over the years, and I understood that the word of wisdom is actually the prophetic word at another level, given precise, if I can put it that way, precise direction of what to do next. That is called the word of wisdom. And that's why on the list of the 9 spiritual gifts in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the word of wisdom is number 1 at the top, because it's the directive gift. It gives direction as to what you must do next. Beyond the mind of the preacher, the apostle, prophet, evangelist, teacher, pastor, talking to you, it's come beyond their minds. It's not their thought on what you should do next. It's what the Spirit reveals to them. This is what you do next. Because what the Spirit could do in that situation where this person, you've told them by the word of knowledge their house is going to collapse in 10 weeks, then the word of knowledge will say, go to a company and give the company name, and will give the name of the person you must speak to. And that again is a word of knowledge, but it's giving the direction of where you must go. And that many times in the Bible that actually happened, where prophets would speak the current situation. The word of knowledge gives the current, immediate situation of the problem and reveals what's hidden. The word of wisdom works with it at all times to give the special, again, the special direction, accurate direction of what you do next. That's how the word of wisdom works. Amen.